Oh. All right, now it is on. Welcome everyone to the September 2024 regular meeting of the San Francisco Elections Commission. I'm the president, Robin Stone. The time is now 5:33 p.m. and I call the meeting to order. Before we proceed further, I would like to ask Commission Secretary Marisa Davis to briefly explain some procedures for participating in today's meeting.
Thank you, President Stone. The minutes of this meeting will reflect that this meeting is being held in person at City Hall, room 416, 1 Carlton B. Goodlett Place in San Francisco, and remotely via WebEx. As authorized by the Elections Commission February 15, 2023 vote, members of the public may attend the meeting to observe and provide public comment either at the physical meeting location or remotely. Details and instructions for participating remotely are listed on the Commission's website and on today's meeting agenda. Public comment will be available on each item on this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 3 minutes to speak, 6 minutes if you are on the line with an interpreter. When providing public comment, you are encouraged to state your name clearly. Once your 3 minutes have expired, staff will thank you and you will be muted. Please direct your comments to the entire commission and not a specific commissioner. When joining by phone, you will hear a beep when you are connected to the meeting. You will be automatically muted in the listening mode only. To make a comment, dial *3 to raise your hand when your item of interest comes up. You will be added to the public comment line. You will hear you have raised your hand to ask a question. Please wait until the host calls on you. The line will be silent as you wait your turn to speak. If at any time you change your mind and wish to withdraw yourself from the public comment line, press *3 again. You will hear the system say you have lowered your hand. When joining by WebEx or a web browser, make sure the participant's side panel is showing. At the bottom of the list of attendees is a small button or icon that looks like a hand. Press the hand icon to raise your hand. You will be unmuted when it is time for you to comment. When you are done with your comment, click the hand icon again to lower your hand. In addition to participating in real time, interested persons are encouraged to participate in this meeting by submitting comment in writing by 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting to elections.commission@sfgov.org. It will be shared with the commission after this meeting has concluded and will be included as part of the official meeting file. Thank you, President Stone.
Thank you, Secretary Davis. Will you please proceed with item 1, Commission roll call?
President Stone.
Present.
Vice President Parker.
She will be here in a few moments.
Commissioner Bernholz.
Here.
Commissioner Dye.
Here.
Commissioner Lavolsi.
Here.
Commissioner Wong.
Present.
President Stone, with 6 members present and accounted for, you have a quorum.
Great. The San Francisco Elections Commission acknowledges that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as caretakers of this place, as well as for all people who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors and relatives of the Ramaytush community and affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. Closes agenda item 1. We'll move now to agenda item number 2, general public comment. Public comment on any issue within the Elections Commission's general jurisdiction that is not covered by another item on this agenda.
There are no people participating via WebEx with their hand raised.
Great.
Ms. Butters? Hello, are you there? Hello, are you there? Ms. Butters? Okay, we did have one participant on WebEx with hand raised, but they're not answering. If that person would like to make a comment, please let us know with your hand raised on the system. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hear
sir.
me?
Oh, yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on just a sec. I'm going to start your timer here.
Okay,
You're ready to go.
thank you. My name is Karen Butter, and I'm a member of the Alameda County Election Commission that was formed in 2023. And one of our first projects was a recommendation to our Board of Supervisors to implement cast vote records throughout the vote canvass process instead of after the election is certified, as the ROV has done in the past. In Alameda County, this was especially important due to the miscount in the 2022 election, where the results were incorrect in 3 races. In one, the wrong winner was declared, requiring a judge to reopen the election to report the winning candidate. We have a recommendation this coming Tuesday to the Alameda County Board of Supervisors to ask the board to direct the ROV to release the CVRs throughout the vote counting process. We've been monitoring SB 1328, which our ROV declared would make it a felony to release the CVRs. The bill was amended without the confusing language, and we have a statement from Senator Bradford's legislative director that states there is nothing in the bill to prevent the release. The bill is now on the governor's desk. However, we do expect challenges in the next legislative session. We have looked to San Francisco for their leadership with CVRs and hope to partner on ongoing challenges to the CVR process. We think this is an especially important process in election integrity and the accuracy in vote counting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is she muted now? She's still on. You can mute on the computer. Are there any other public commenters?
There are no other public commenters.
Okay, great. We will close agenda item number 2 and move to agenda item number 3, approval of previous meeting minutes, discussion and possible action on previous election commission meeting minutes. And we welcome Vice President Parker to the meeting. Yes, Commissioner Dye.
Thank you, President Stone. I caught a couple of errors in the minutes. One was SB 1328 was incorrectly stated as 1348 in multiple places. And I thought it was a little misleading for former Commissioner Jordanek. I just wanted to clarify that he had not sent us a report. He had sent us an email regarding his updated ranked choice voting results reporter software. So just to clarify that. And then finally, this might be, I just wanted to clarify that under Commissioner's report, that I had brought up the information about SB 1328 to express the Commission's concerns on this matter. I wouldn't say stance is correct since we weren't sure what the shape of the amendment was actually in at the time. So it was to raise concerns and kind of educate about our past practices. And I'm happy to provide all of these edits directly to Secretary Davis. One other thing, and maybe Vice President Parker could clarify, it wasn't consistent with my notes. She had also found an error with the previous minutes. And it said here that something about that the review needs to be on the next regular meeting agenda, and I don't think that's correct.
Vice President Parker.
Thank you. I wanted to offer that correction as well, Commissioner Dye. And my recommendation is just to strike the final clause in that part of the minutes. We didn't suggest that it should be on the September agenda. It was just that we had already had the closed session in July, so it wasn't going to be scheduled for August.
Yes. Was that it, Commissioner Dye? Thank you. And thank you for the catch on the legislation as well. With those edits, do we have general consensus to approve the minutes with Commissioner Dye and Vice President Parker's? Okay, great. Let's move to public comment.
There are no public commenters.
Great. That closes agenda item number 3. Let's move to agenda item number 4, the director's report, discussion and possible action regarding the September 2024 director's report. Oh,
Thank you, President Stone. Just to give some updates in addition to the report. So the English and Chinese voter information pamphlets, the PDFs are already online. They've been online since last week, actually. And then the overseas and military ballots were mailed last Friday. And then the English VIP, the paper, the hard copy versions will be starting to drop in the United States Postal Service starting this Thursday. And then the vote by mail ballots, 500,000 or so, will be dropping USPS next Thursday, October 3rd. And we've already got 100 or more than 100 ballots back so far from overseas voters. So the election is fully in swing. And really from there, I can take any questions on the director's report. So.
thank you, Director Arntz. Open it up to commissioners. Vice President Parker.
Thank you. I feel like I'm always the person raising my hand thinking somebody else will want to go first. Let's see. I feel like there's so much that I could say. Thank you for the report. I am impressed. We have 4 cards and not more than that this time. I was also really happy to read about the inclusion of why an accurate and complete vote count takes time, and of course the RCV stuff in the voter information pamphlet. And I was wondering how you plan to ensure that people will pay attention to that in the VIP. I'm wondering if instead of just flipping to whatever they're searching for, is that going to be like in the press release or anything when that goes out, or I don't know, just wondering if there's any way to draw attention to that.
Well, we had not planned on issuing a press release specific on that page in the voter information pamphlet. We will be providing information, and we can reference that page, certainly about the result reporting as we go through the cycle.
Yeah, if there's any, I see later in the report that you talked about drawing attention for the media and things like that to this, why it will take time to process all of this and have an accurate count. So if there are any public communications to go out about it, I would encourage you to include like take note, this is in the voter information pamphlet because a lot of voters may be wondering. I also really appreciated the new webpage with all of that information. And I don't know if it was in response to the conversation we had here. You all were probably already thinking about it on your own, but I think it's a really proactive and important move. And it shows just a lot of great alignment between what the commission is interested in, what the department is doing and prioritizing. And again, as I was just saying, I'm glad to see that will be also shared with the media. Also relating back to a conversation we had after the primary about us caring a lot about the media's role in helping the public understand the process and the timeline for certifying the election. So that's great. I was happy to see those things. And the folks who have signed up to view the voter information pamphlet online. So in my calculations, that looked like about 10% of the voters, of registered voters receiving that. So I was excited to see, I think we're making progress there, and had a question related. So once they sign up to receive it, and not a paper version, are they signed up for all future elections that way as well? They don't have to opt in each time, correct? Okay, great. Let's see, what else I have in my notes. Congrats on finalizing all the polling places and recruiting enough poll workers, and all that success that you had at the job fair. That's all great news. Let's see. I also, and I know we'll talk about this a little later in the agenda, but because it's here in your report, I just wanted to mention, I really appreciate the background on why we have an alternative security plan. I think that's really important for the public to understand, so that the trust in our elections is prioritized, so that all the potential conflicts of interest are avoided. So I appreciated that information and hope the public pays attention to that as well. I'm wondering, what is the timing for when it goes from the commission to the Board of Supervisors for approval?
So the commission approves and then forwards it to the board. There's no need for the board to take action.
Oh, they don't have to do an
Correct.
approval. Okay, it just goes to them for review, a notification. Okay, great.
It'll go into their petitions and communications.
Okay, great.
We can-
Also,
Oh, sorry, point of clarification. We can also talk about that process on that agenda item as well. If folks want to talk through like the full process of that. It's just a point of clarification.
great, thank you. I was also excited about the enhanced results reporting. It's really comprehensive and also very much in line with the conversations we had after the primaries. So happy to see that. I was, of course, thrilled to see the record number of high school ambassadors you have and the mentorship program with staff for this election. And after the election is over, I would personally love to hear any anecdotes about the students' experience or the impact that that program is having on them and their peers as they're engaged in that program. And wondered also the celebration that you mentioned that would be had with the students. Would that be open to members of the commission to attend?
Sure.
I'd be interested if I can get information about that later. And then the last comment I had, just lots of happy praise here and my thoughts. I love that the voting outreach campaign includes the street sheet in addition to sort of the more traditional standard media outlets. So I was glad to see that. That's it.
Thank you, Vice President Parker. Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, President Stone. Thank you as always for the detailed report. And I have a lot more questions and comments for the later sections on the elections plan. But there's one thing I do want to ask because it's more relevant to the director's report. I'm really excited to see the thoughtful planning and outreach for non-citizen votings. As I'm aware, the non-citizen voting collaborative is already, ready for enhanced outreach. So I'm really excited for that. It would be helpful to have the new registration data for non-citizen, perhaps kind of broken, maybe by month, so we can track kind of the effectiveness of the outreach efforts and kind of which area we should be focusing on too. Just a thought. So if that's the data available, it would be great to share. That's it from my end. Yeah.
Thanks. Commissioner Bernholz.
Thanks, President Stone. Hi, Director Arntz. Building on what others have said, I want to just clarify for myself that item 2B, the improved reporting process, is actually the open source tool built by former Commissioner Jordanek. And I want to note that because of annual performance reviews. So that is what we're talking about here, correct?
That's part of it, correct?
Yeah, and also kudos on the other pieces of it. It looks like you've been making quite a few changes. Other question, my usual question at this point, especially given the Secretary of State's office and other places around the country, have there been any security incidents that required any form of response?
Not in San Francisco.
Okay. Is there any formal reporting structure from the local election offices up to the Secretary of State's office for security threats?
It depends on the incident. If it was cybersecurity, we'd bring the state in. If it was let's say like a isolated incident for a physical security threat, potentially not.
Yeah.
So the Secretary of State's office in California is not, or there is no centralized repository of tracking threats to election departments over time.
Not all threats, no. The cybersecurity,
Cybersecurity.
right? Most of the physical security is taken care of locally. So we have a lot of meetings and interactions with the local agencies, but regarding physical security potential issues.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for a report and all your great work. Thank you.
Sorry. I was off thinking about that. Commissioner Dye.
Thank you, President Stone. Director Arntz, I, of course, am really excited to see the enhancements for the results reporting. Can we get a sneak peek of that? Is that going to be?
I think October 7th is when we'll post the zero reports around then. So,
Right. Wonderful. And also glad to see the progress on the Go Green campaign. I think 10% is great. So I think it would be good to have a goal. And I was looking at a note. It says that we have over 300,000 households. So ideally, we would get from the 500,000 down to the 300,000. So maybe there could be some kind of tracking against how we get to 300,000, because I think that would be a good goal, right? So then one per household as opposed to all the roommates, et cetera. And I have many more comments for the election plan, and I will wait till we get to that item.
Thanks, Commissioner Dye. I had just a couple of follow-up questions. Well, just one question, one comment, and then one point of clarification. I do believe, as it pertains to threats to elections offices at the local level, unless they're not getting reported to local law enforcement, I do think that DHS is tracking that. If as like on a national scale, so tracking what's happening in local offices through the local through the law enforcement entities up into the federal level, I believe. I looked that up at one point. So not necessarily through the state or through the Secretary of State, but through other federal agencies. One question I had about the overseas voters. So you said you've already received 100 ballots back. Can you remind me what date you sent those? Well, you sent them to the overseas voters?
last Friday.
And you already have 100 back?
Mhm.
That's incredible. Thanks for clarifying that. Wow. That's great. And then I have a ton of stuff on the election plan that, because obviously there's a fair amount of overlap, but then one thing I wanted to mention about Go Green, which isn't relevant to this election, but maybe in the future to increase folks' willingness to switch to digital, is I was talking to someone about how long our voter information pamphlets are, and they suggested, or they'd heard of another jurisdiction that does QR codes on different things. So you could either use a QR code on advertisements, or in other places to sign up to have it, fully, to not have one sent to you, and also to just use it to review the actual voter information pamphlet. So food for thought for a future idea. And like I said, the rest of my comments are as it pertains to the election plan. I'll open it up to any other commissioner who has a question yeah, Commissioner, Commissioner Volsi, did you have anything you wanted to add before I switch? Okay, Commissioner Dye.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was just thinking on the QR code, it might be a way to shorten the voter information guide as well for certain sections, that you could just have a big QR code for more details, so that you could have kind of a summary. So that might be a way to reduce the bulk.
Thank you, Commissioner Dye. If there are no other comments, let's move to public comment.
Oh, sorry.
No other comments.
Great. That closes agenda item number 4. Let's move to agenda item number 5, Commissioners' Reports. Discussion and possible action on Commissioners' Reports for topics not covered by another item on this agenda. Meetings with public officials, oversight and observation activities, long-range planning for commission activities in areas of study, proposed legislation which affect elections, and others. Yes, Commissioner Dye.
Thank you, President Stone. I just wanted to make a brief comment considering the public comment we had from Ms. Butter of the Alameda Election Commission. Just a quick update on SB 1328, which, as predicted, did pass and is in the process of being implemented. As noted by Mr. Hill last time, it did not include any kind of felony or ban on publishing the cast vote record for now. And I understand we're going to have this as an agenda item to have a more thorough discussion at the next meeting. But just so the public knows, I did share, put together the information that I promised at the last meeting and shared it with the rest of the commission, including some of the communications with Senator Bradford's legislative director, and some of the background on the situation in Alameda, which we will post for the next meeting. I did want to point out for Ms. Butter, I recommend that she take a look at our extremely thorough and complete election plan that we always get from Director Arntz. And if you look on page 60, it has information on vote transparency and indicates how we share the cast vote record and, in fact, ballot images quite quickly in order that the members of the public can do their own tabulations to check our machines and unexpected results.
Thank you, Commissioner Dye. I'll be sure to look at all the materials and we can decide what makes sense as a packet item. Any other commissioners? Okay, let's move to public comment. Okay, that closes agenda item number 5. Let's move to agenda item number 6, November 2024 Consolidated General Election Plan. Discussion and possible action regarding the proposed election plan for the November 5th, 2024 Consolidated General Election. Hand it to Director Arnson. Do you have any comments before we dive in?
I think the plan is a good overview and provides a lot of detail regarding the upcoming election. I'll be glad to take any questions.
No detail at all was put into this election plan. Thank you, Director Ernst. Take commissioners' comments and questions. Is Lucy? I'm happy to start if everyone's a little shy. Sure. I was joking about the details, obviously. I just want to start by saying what an exceptional election plan. I mean, incredibly comprehensive. I think gold, just like the gold standard, reading through this, it's just remarkable. And I think it's important that we take a second to recognize that there are the vast majority of elections departments are not putting anything like this out. So a huge, huge just thank you for the public for just demonstrating the depths to what the department does to make sure it's a fair, functional process with trust and integrity. So I just want to say thank you for such an exceptional plan, first and foremost. I had a couple of just follow-up comments and questions for you, and also additional, more specific praise. The RCV training, or like, what would we call it? Curriculum, like that you're offering the public that's better. Thank you. The educator over here, working in education, spoke much better than I did on that. But did you develop that yourself? Did the department develop that? Is that a resource that you used from a nonprofit organization? Can you just share a little bit? I mean, I apologize if I missed it in previous election plans, but it was the first I'd seen it.
I did not develop it myself. We folks in the department developed it, and our IT group put it together, and then we've had it for several years. We went at it again prior to this election, so it's an updated version.
Wow, that's great. Awesome, very cool. I also wanted to echo, I think it was Commissioner Dye, maybe it was Vice President Parker, the part about RCV information going in the voter information pamphlet. I think that's great. I feel that when I talk to voters in San Francisco, people still do really love the paper voter information pamphlet, and it is much more trusted than some of the political material that they receive. And so the fact that they are using these pamphlets, the pamphlet, and have this resource available to them, I just think it's a great idea. So I think it's excellent. I wanted to ask a question about something pertaining to ballot curing, which just seemed like another level of service that I was very surprised to read on page 22, and you don't have to go in. It's just, you had said, there was one line in there that basically said that if you couldn't reach a member of like a voter to cure their ballot, you would also hand deliver them. Can you speak to that? I mean, is that something that you've offered in the past? Is that because of new legislation? Can you just speak to that briefly?
It's similar to the ballot delivery that we've been doing for many years. So if someone really just can't receive information or get it back to us, then we will, make the trip and pick it up or deliver it.
Wow, thank you. I also was glad to see, as it pertains to Commissioner Bernholz's comments about threats, it was great to see the emergency response plan in here as well, of many different scenarios. So I think that's also very helpful and also very great, very good from a transparency perspective. So, if measures have to be taken, how the department is planning to respond to those things, I think that's great. So thank you for including that. I had a question about the number of ballot types. 38 seems pretty substantial. Can you just speak to, well, I guess it's technically 39, right? It's 38 plus the non-citizen ballot. Is that correct, or?
Well, it's actually less because we have 3 ballot types that are empty because of the voters on the islands.
Okay.
But it's about the normal number of ballot types we have. It's not unsurprising. It's what we would expect about that range.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then in the public awareness, in the results reporting public awareness campaign, I wanted to ask about how much you plan to incorporate, and apologies, you may have this on the website. I think that website is great. By the way, I'm really excited that that was newly developed and provided to the media. I was able to glance at just very briefly, but I wanted to ask if in the public awareness campaign that or public education, no, awareness campaign that you're hoping to do with the results reporting, I don't know that I had seen this as one of the like key objectives. Are you planning to talk about about the role of vote by mail ballots and when they're counted, when they're received on or after Election Day? Because that is often what takes the longest. Can you just speak to that briefly?
Yeah, so that's one of the main messages to get across is that we get the volume of ballots that we receive on Election Day and also after Election Day now just require extra review, and also we stop processing on Election Day. And that's really one of the most important messages for us to get out isn't the length of time to process the ballots. It's the fact that there will be no results report on Wednesday following Election Day. So we have to start the process back up again. But yeah, we'll provide that, and I'll be speaking a lot to the media about it. It'll be a consistent message as we go through the cycle.
Thank you for doing that. I think that's going to we can't predict how the city and the media will react, but I think just doing our best to put some messaging and education behind it is just great. And the fact that this website exists is just another tool. So thank you. And then as it pertains to non-citizen voting, I appreciate you putting this level of detail for public transparency purposes. There is obviously a lot of debate about this issue on a national level at present, and particularly as it pertains to local elections offices, namely Arizona comes to mind. I'd love for you to if you could just talk very briefly for the kind of the record here. You obviously put it into the election plan, but if you could just talk briefly, walking through the overview of how the voter rolls are managed separately from the rest of the citizen voter roll.
Well, you said it.
Yeah.
Essentially. So there's all counties are connected to the Secretary of State's statewide registration database. And the statewide registration database is the information of record. And so to have a valid registration in California, one must be a citizen. And so there's no record that goes to the statewide registration database that the Secretary of State's office maintains would ever be a valid record. So we've had to replicate that database process within the office. It's not a matter of just having the names in a table, because all the elections functions, all the history, the issuing of ballots, the assignment of polling places, the printing of names and rosters, it all comes from that database. So we've had to replicate that database and administer a separate database in our office that can do all the same processes that the statewide connection does for regular voters. And then when we count the ballots, though, we don't separate the ballots. The votes are included in the aggregate total of votes for the Board of Education contest.
And how do folks through the system that's managed at the state prove that they are registered citizens?
Well, it's all penalty of perjury in California, and it's all cross-referenced, and the information that is submitted to the Secretary of State's office or local offices is cross-referenced with DMV information, also with Social Security information, DPH to a certain degree, and also with the State Department of Corrections. But in California, it's all registration information is submitted under the penalty of perjury and signed by the voter.
Thank you. And so would you say that the separation of voter rolls is what ensures that a non-citizen would not receive a ballot that is not specifically intended for a non-citizen voter?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that part. Yeah, so it's a separate issuing. It's actually a separate election that we're conducting. So it's So it's a separate database, so it's actually a separate election. We actually have consolidated the non-citizen election for Board of Education into the municipal election in San Francisco. And so, but we also consolidate the statewide offices, the federal offices. So we're not consolidating just because of the non-citizen voting, but it's part of the consolidated elections that are occurring in November.
Thank you. I just think it's important for transparency, to explain the safeguards that the department offers to ensure that the voter rolls are kept separately and there aren't any errors. There are safeguards in place to prevent a inaccurate ballot being sent to a non-citizen voter. So thank you for providing that transparency on both the election plan and out loud. I think that was it. Yes, that's it for me, I think. Thank you, Director Arntz. Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, President Stone. Director Ans, the elections plan is really comprehensive and informative. I'm really excited about the introduction of new ballot QR2 for this election, the online portal that people can sign on and correct and cure the ballot. I think it could streamline the ballot processing and counting process. And, echoing what President Stone shared, I think the launch of outreach materials, particularly the YouTube presentation on ranked choice voting and the interactive tools, is really impressive and highly educational. And as I mentioned, our review, the Chinese version is really clear and easily understandable. So really, really happy to see all of that. And thank you for all your hard work and the department staff as well. I do have a few questions. Some of it's just clarifying questions and comments. The first one is for the mis and disinformation MDM evaluation and response plan. It's really hard to say the whole thing. It's really hard. So basically it is the plan to, tackle misinformation. I'm glad to see that department has developed a solid strategy to monitor and respond to various levels of MDM incidents. And I kind of want to provide one nuances that misinformation is equally, if not more prevalent in non-English spaces, especially targeting immigrants voters or people who don't read English. And actually has a recent nonprofit report that examining Chinese language disinformation that found that similar to English disinformation, a major narrative involves casting doubt on the integrity of elections. And interestingly, X, or formerly known as Twitter, is the leading platform for spreading Chinese language disinformation, actually far surpassing WeChat, which was the main platform 1 to 2 years ago. So I find it really interesting to see that. But still, WeChat and Telegram remain popular channels for circulating elections disinformation. So just want to share that information with the department and with the public. I understand that it is not feasible to track all disinformation circulating online, but I wanted to highlight the context of Chinese language disinformation, and perhaps we can resort to our nonprofit partners that have more diverse language capacity and research, so we can look into the matters if it's arise for these elections. And I'm also happy to share the report with the rest of the commission, with the public and the department. So this is just a context. And I do have questions about SRO housing situation. And I know that the department will provide a number of SRO facility operator with a list of reminders of how they should receive and handle elections mails, because there has been some issues before with that. I was just wondering how many SRO operators has the department contacted so far? Do you have a number?
So far, no. I mean, there's over 50.
Over 50.
Yeah, I don't know the number that we've contacted so far. We've already sent information to all of them at this point, but I don't have the final total. I have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, no worries. Just another context. I actually spoke to some SRO voters recently, and basically kind of the common concern for SRO voters is that actually a lot of well-managed SROs, for example, those run by Chinatown Community Development Center doesn't usually face significant issues with mail services. They usually have a property management and they know how to handle mails, especially elections mails. But then less managed SRO still face challenges sometimes because it's really up to the property management to decide how to handle those mails. So some people receive it, some don't. And so that's why I'm interested to see the list of SRO operators or private landlords, because, I would love to just like keep track of that and see if, we can help or collaborating with other nonprofits. For SROs that operate by CCDs, the Chinatown Community Development Center, usually, they don't handle other SROs in Chinatown, for example. So it's up to individual landlords or operators to do their job. I know, this is not completely on the department, but I would love to facilitate those conversations if possible. And I also received some observation that some people don't receive ballots, especially Asian elders living in SROs. But then it's individual issues. So if there is anything, I will share with the department too, to assist individuals. So that's it for the SRO housing. The last question is just a clarifying question, is ballot adjudication and remake. I find it really fascinating to like just look at the procedure and how to like actually do that. I'm aware that 2 people will be handling the ballot adjudication and remix. I just have a clarifying questions in the event of differing opinions. For example, one person think that, one thing, another thinks the other thing, who will be, who has the authority to make the final decision?
There's a supervisor also involved.
Right.
So if there needs to be a third opinion, that would be the supervisor.
The supervisor. So it will be one of the 2 persons
No,
or
the third person.
the third person. Okay, gotcha. I think that just really, informational to know, like who is going to make that decision. Okay, cool. I think that's it from my end. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong. Commissioner Dai.
Director Ernst, yes, thanks. Again, let me add my kudos to everyone else. Really great elections plan. Really a model for other counties, even though many of them don't require it. I actually watched the RCV YouTube for the first time. I actually thought it was great. It was quite informational, although my fictional narrator was Sam, not Alex. And you have been using this for a couple of years? Yeah, it's good. It's good to refresh our memory every 2 years because people forget in between of how to do it. So I was happy to see that there was an assessment plan for all the outreach events and other things in the elections plan. And again, we've had this discussion before. A lot of the quantified statistics are what we would consider outputs, not outcomes. So just the fact you've done so many events and you've provided the training doesn't mean that people got trained and actually absorbed anything. So I was happy to see that there are surveys planned for these outreach events, and even things like the RCV video, for example, kind of asking a question at the end and allowing people to comment. What is one thing you learned that you didn't know before? Like, I learned I didn't have to vote for all of the candidates, right? Or I learned what an overvote was. Just to get a sense of what's actually being retained in these educational efforts and how effective the outreach events are. There is the opportunity to take almost any kind of quantitative data and quantify it. So I just want to offer my support should your department need it. I've done a lot of work on outcomes versus outputs and how to quantify qualitative data. I'm happy to review any surveys or make suggestions, but yeah, we've got great numbers, but we want to kind of see what the conversion rate is, so to speak. But I'm glad there's a plan to do it. Thanks.
Vice President Parker?
I don't have a whole lot to add after all of those comments, but I do want to just add my gratitude and appreciation for this really comprehensive plan. And also, I know we are not the most highly attended commission meeting in the city, but if anybody happens to watch this later, I really encourage them to take time to review the plan, partly because it's such a great view into the structure and the work of the department and everything that goes into elections. And making sure that, you know, as you say in the introduction, that every eligible voter has access to safe, barrier-free registration and voting options. So I hope that people who wonder will take the time to review it. And I, you know, as well as you all do run the elections, I appreciate that you continue to be so invested in growth and innovation. After many, many years of people who are very experienced at this, you've been with the department for a very long time. But the section on like the new and improved practices is so long in this plan, and we've already discussed them in our meetings, so much so I'm not going to comment on all of them because we have talked about them so much here. But again, sort of encourage and congratulate that is the culture of this department. And then just one last comment, you know, I know we discussed this last month, but in relation to some of the other comments, I appreciate all of the efforts you all make to cure ballots so that everyone who is eligible to vote has their vote counted. And I think that's a really strong statement. You know, I think you were talking about this, President Stone, you know, at the beginning, sort of, you know, going to homes and, you know, there's just so much effort put into curing ballots. I think it's a very strong statement about how much we mean every vote counts and that we really want to reduce barriers for folks. And, you know, sometimes people's signature looks different than it was when they first signed up, you know, registered to vote or whatever it is. I just think it's a really strong statement and really grows trust, you know, in my opinion. So that's all that wasn't already covered. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Parker. Does Commissioner Bernholz have her hand up? That's what I thought. Commissioner Bernholz?
Thank you, and thank you, Director Arntz. Just two quick questions. I'm curious on the MERP, the 3 tiers of severity, if that's a structure that was developed in-house or if you brought that over from somewhere else.
We mostly developed that in-house around the time that we had the hearing, I can't remember when it was, regarding artificial intelligence potential impact on local elections. So we thought about that, and that's where those tiers came into play.
Okay. And then on page 25, where you mentioned the de-escalation training, is that something being done by an outside vendor, or is that an in-house curriculum?
It's a continuation of our in-house curriculum. We implemented this at least in March, and I think even before.
22.
Well, okay, yeah,
At
and then
least.
so now we've gone beyond that.
Okay. Thank you. And fantastic. I'm very excited for the election, and I very much appreciate your work and the work of the department. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernholz. Commissioner Volsi, did you have anything? Okay. Any just 1 second, Secretary Davis. Do you need to pause the meeting?
There's no one on.
Oh, we're not moving to public comment yet. Just in a second. Did anyone have any other comments about the election plan before we move to public comment? Okay, now we are moving to public comment.
There are no public commenters.
Okay, great. Thank you, Secretary Davis. That was fast. let's move to agenda, that closes agenda item number 6. Let's move to agenda item number 7. Oh, thank you. That's correct. Do we need to approve the plan? Yes, my apologies. A little bit of an oversight, to say the least. Thank you, Vice President Parker. I move that we approve the election plan.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Volsi. Let's move to a vote.
Okay. President Stone,
Yes.
Vice President Parker,
Yes.
Commissioner Dye,
Aye.
Commissioner Bernholz,
Yes.
Commissioner LaVolsi,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong.
Yes.
Great. Motion passes. Thank you, Vice President Parker, for making sure we did it. That now closes out agenda item number 6. We'll move to agenda item number 7, alternative security plan. Discussion and possible action regarding the proposed alternative transportation and security plan as required by the San Francisco Charter for the November 5th, 2024 consolidated general election. So Director Arntz, you want to walk us through that?
Yes, thank you, President Stone. So the charter requires the department to develop an alternative security plan whenever the incumbent sheriff appears on the ballot. And this is the actually the second time that we've put forward this plan. And the plan is for Chief Deputy McConnell, who's the operations director, I guess you could say, for the sheriff's office, to assume all operational responsibilities for the deputies who provide security for the election as we go through the cycle until certification. And this essentially separates Sheriff Miyamoto from any operational decisions or any sort of influence on the planning and the execution of the plan through the election cycle. And Chief Deputy McConnell is also a permanent civil servant, so he's not a direct appointee of the sheriff. We have in the past looked at not using the sheriff's deputies to provide security for the elections. And I think 2016, 2017 was the last time we did this. And we actually had to enlist, I think it was like 5 different private security firms to potentially provide the number of personnel that would equal the number of deputies that are assigned to assist us, especially on election day, election evening, to pick up the ballots at the polling places, then also the potentially the memory devices from the polling places as well, from the voting equipment. And the private security couldn't even promise us they could provide all the personnel. They gave us quotes on the number of they gave us quotes based on the number of people they think they could provide, but they couldn't make assurances. So even though there's deputies still involved in providing security and picking up the ballots, this is a process that they've been doing since 2002, and it's also a number of personnel that we really couldn't be promised to have if we didn't go through the sheriff's department to obtain the services that we receive. So, and also I think our work order with the sheriff's office is around $400,000 for all security for this election. And in 2017 or so, when we went out to bid for this, the costs then were over $1 million. I mean, so it's more cost effective to use the deputies. There's the sheriff will be separated from any operational planning or decision making. The deputies, they know the operation, they know the drill. And there's the hard copy ballots. We also have the memory devices, and 2 separate groups are picking up the ballots and the memory devices. So, and the deputies are in possession of the ballots literally for an hour or so on election night, and they drop them off at our warehouse on election night, and the memory devices the parking control officers bring to City Hall, and we upload them right away. So there really is no risk by having the sheriff's deputies still involved in providing security for the election, and that's why we're putting forward this plan, seeking the commission's approval. So.
Thank you for the background. Will you also just reiterate what you shared with Vice President Parker earlier about the process after, or should we approve the
No.
plan? Will you just talk through what the next steps are?
So the charter requires the commission to approve an alternative security plan when the sheriff appears on the ballot, and then to forward that approved plan to the board of supervisors. And essentially what happens is that the alternative security plan will appear on the petitions and communications portion of the board's agenda, probably for next Tuesday's meeting. So it'd be publicly noticed by the board in that manner.
And then once they approve, is there,
They don't, it's just noticed. to the
it's just
board.
a notice and you don't have to actually appear there. It's just literally, okay, thank you. Open this item up for commissioner questions or comments. Yes. Yes, Commissioner Dye.
Yeah, so just kind of curious how usual or unusual it is for this kind of requirement in other jurisdictions.
For alternative security plan?
Mhm.
I don't know of any other county in California that has a requirement that the sheriff's office provide security for the ballots, the voted ballots. So I would think that means there's no other county that would have this requirement in California.
Well, so what's typical in other counties then, if they don't use the sheriffs?
I don't really track how they do this, so.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious because I think, given that we do use the sheriff's department, that this is, again, an example of how San Francisco really tries to bend over backwards to make sure there's no conflict of interest, which just noted for the public. And with that, I move that we approve this.
I'll second, but want to open it up for other commissioners to answer any, or to ask any questions or add any comments as well. I'll just add, since I don't see another commissioner, I, in addition to seconding being a second to the motion, I also second the sentiment that I think this is really great. And I appreciate all of the information that goes into educating the public about why this process exists and your explanation of it. And also the idea of using, I didn't know it was going to be $1 million as a quote, but I could only imagine how expensive it would be to use private security. And it's great to see the relationship between your department and the sheriff's office and working with the deputies. I've seen it in action for myself, and it's really a well-oiled machine. So very easily wanted to second this this alternative plan. Any other comments? All right, let's move to public comment before we move to the roll call. Or does Commissioner Bernals have her hand up? No. Okay, then let's move to public comment. Okay, since there are no public comments, we will move to a vote.
President Stone,
Yes.
Vice President Parker,
Yes.
Commissioner Dye,
Aye.
Commissioner Bernholz,
Yes.
Commissioner LaVolsi,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. That closes agenda item number 7. Let's move to agenda item number 8, employee waiver approval. Discussion and possible action regarding the waiver for city employees to assist the Department of Elections with the November 5th, 2024 consolidated general election. Sir,
Thank
Director
you,
Arntz.
President Stone. So the same charter amendment that required an alternative security plan also prohibited city employees from assisting the Department of Elections in conducting elections unless the Elections Commission explicitly and the Elections Commission recommended and the Board of Supervisors approved a waiver allowing city employees to assist the department. And this is that waiver. We don't really expect to have a need for city employees to help us specifically to conduct the election. But there might be some poll workers, people who join us to be poll workers. And I don't want to have someone who works with us and, during leave, who's a city employee, and we don't have a waiver. So there's not really a need for us to enlist the assistance of city employees for this election, but we, by habit, have requested that the commission recommend that the board approve a waiver to allow city employees to assist the department to conduct the election if necessary. And so
Great.
that waiver. So.
Thank you, Director Arntz. Any comments or questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Dye.
Yes, Director Arntz, could you just expound on what was the thinking behind prohibiting city employees from working on elections for the benefit of the public?
I cannot.
So let me maybe guess at what was the thinking behind it and see if anyone else has any comments. My theory is that one, there may be city employees who are political or affiliated with electeds, and that might be considered a conflict of interest. That was one. And my other thought is that to the degree that it's possible, that we want to offer our seasonal and temporary employment for poll workers and other seasonal employees to non-city employees to give them some economic opportunity. So those are two reasons that I thought of.
Is that it? I just had a question about, this is President Stone. I just had a question about how many city employees usually participate as poll workers in any, whether it's a presidential election or midterms. I'm just curious how often folks actually do once it's waived, which I assume it always is.
It has been not many. Some elections, maybe like a June gubernatorial primary election, we might be in need. But through time, our recruiting, I don't know, I guess we've had better results. So we haven't really had a need or for city employees to volunteer as poll workers.
And would they just be at the poll worker level and not, let's say, at an inspector level or a higher level at the as supporting the department in its administration of the election?
Under the waiver?
Yeah.
They could take any position, any not a permanent civil servant position or year-round position, but any temporary as needed position potentially could be filled by a city employee. We've never sought that sort of scope with this waiver. It's always been election day related work. And this waiver for 20 years was basically, we had a group of folks associated with the city attorney's office, the Department of Technology, the city administrator's office, who assisted us with uploading the memory devices. And but now we've taken over that work too. And it wasn't because we had a need for those folks. That was really sort of something they took pride in doing based on work they had done with an earlier voting system that we had prior to the charter amendment coming to being in 2002. And it's just something that continued through time. But really, we haven't had a need for any city employees to help us other than maybe an occasional poll worker slot and specifically with the language, bilingual language abilities. So
Makes sense. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Wong.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that like there's not a big need for city employees to do that, but just out of curiosity, what is the screening process for city employees to, for example, become a poll worker in kind of the evaluating the potential conflicts of interest? Is there a process?
we provide them an application as we would anyone else.
And then you will be screening and just to make sure there will be no conflicts of interest. of serving as poll workers or?
No, we don't have a criteria that we apply to
Okay.
people to prohibit them from assisting the department.
Okay. Yep. Just curious. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Bernholz, I can't see her. No. Okay. Let's move to public comment.
Hi, I'm George Gabori, San Francisco Election Integrity Team. My only concern about this issue is just to make sure that whenever a waiver is given to a public employee to participate as poll watchers, et cetera. And yeah, I hear what the director is saying, that, you know, it may not be a great need for this, fortunately, which is a good thing. But that adequate procedures are in place, that, you know, if you're stuck under the wire and you've got to get people in a hurry at the last minute, that they receive adequate training, including, you know, the ethics part of it, so that if they have some sort of conflict of interest in some way, that it's mitigated by proper ethics training, so that, you know, everyone has their political beliefs, so, but that people behave professionally, whether they're a poll worker or they're working with the tabulators or whatever they're doing with the election process. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you're open to sharing your name with Secretary Davis written down, that would be great, since you did state it for the record. Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Dye.
Thank you, President Stone. Just to follow up on the comment from a member of the public here. I'm assuming, as you said, that they have to do an application like any other poll worker, and they have to complete training like any other poll worker. Just confirming that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dye. Let's move to a roll call vote.
President Stone,
Yes.
Mom got on a plane to come and see her.
Vice President Parker,
Yes.
Point of
Commissioner
order.
Dye.
Point of order. Do we have an official motion in a second?
I thought you made a motion.
I didn't, but I'd be happy to.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, with
Oh.
the last one.
thank you. I thought you already had. Okay, my apologies. I thought we had
I
already.
move to approve.
Okay, second. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now let's move to a roll call vote.
Okay,
Thank
let's
you,
start over.
Commissioner.
President Stone,
Yes.
Vice President Parker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bernholz,
Yes.
Commissioner Dye,
Aye.
Commissioner LaVolsi,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. The motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner LaVolsi, for keeping me honest. That closes agenda item number 8. Let's move to agenda item number 9, agenda items for future meetings. Discussion and possible action regarding items for future agendas. Yes, Commissioner Dye.
Of course, want to make sure we have SB 1328 and any possible letter on the next agenda. And also, do we need to start working on Secretary Davis's review?
Yes, as I think, as I mentioned in earlier this summer, that process begins in October. I need to go back and review what the process is, but I know that it commences in October. Anything else? Okay, let's move to public comment. Okay, great. That closes agenda item number 9. The time is now 6:47 p.m. and the meeting is now adjourned.